Welcome to Older Podcast. Right now, inside every single human body on this planet, including yours and mine, microscopic cancer cells are forming. Not in some people, not in sick people. Everyone, every single day. And yet most of us will never develop dangerous cancer. Why? Because the body has powerful systems working constantly to keep those cells in check. Today we are going to talk about exactly what those systems are, how they can weaken, and most importantly, what specific foods, at specific amounts, can keep them strong. Joining me today is Nobel Prize-winning scientist Dr. Becker, one of the world's leading voices on how the body protects itself from disease. Dr. Becker, welcome to Older Podcast.
Thank you, Dr. James. It is truly a pleasure to be here, and I am so glad we are having this conversation today because it is one that I believe can genuinely change how people think about their own health. Let me start with something that surprises almost everyone I speak to. When I say that your body is forming cancer cells right now, I do not mean that as a warning. I mean it as context, as the foundation for understanding what we are really talking about today. These microscopic cells form constantly in every human being. They are a natural byproduct of how our cells divide and replicate over a lifetime. The important word is microscopic. Most of them are caught and destroyed before they ever become anything dangerous. Here is the insight that changes everything. Cancer risk is not primarily about genetics. Most people have been taught and believe deeply that cancer is something written into their DNA, something they either have or do not have because of their family history. That is not the full picture. What actually determines whether those microscopic cells stay harmless or grow into something dangerous is the internal environment of the body. The conditions inside you, the chemistry of your blood, your gut, your immune system. And that environment is something you have real influence over every single day. This is not a small point. This is the entire foundation of what I want to share today. Because once you understand that your internal body environment is the key factor, you stop feeling helpless. You start looking at your daily choices, especially what you eat, through a completely different lens.
That is a genuinely powerful reframe. Most of us have grown up thinking cancer is something that either happens to us or it does not, that we are waiting on a genetic verdict. So, doctor, if the internal environment is the true battleground, what exactly are the systems inside the body that are supposed to keep those cancer cells under control?
That is exactly the right question to ask. And I want to explain this in a way that is very clear because once you understand these three systems, everything else we discuss today will make complete sense. The first system is the immune system. You have heard of this, of course, but most people think of the immune system only in terms of colds and infections. In reality, the immune system is running a constant surveillance operation against abnormal cells, including cancer cells. It has specialized cells called natural killer cells, which are exactly what they sound like. Cells whose job is to find and destroy anything that looks wrong. When the immune system is strong and active, it catches most cancer cells early and eliminates them before they can grow. The second system is inflammation control. Inflammation is something the body uses to heal injuries. Short-term inflammation is good. It is the body responding to a wound or an infection. But chronic inflammation, inflammation that stays turned on for weeks, months, and years, creates an environment where cancer cells actually thrive. Think of chronic inflammation as a warm, comfortable home that cancer moves into. When the body keeps inflammation at healthy levels, that home disappears. The third system is angiogenesis control. Angiogenesis, that word simply means the growth of new blood vessels. Tumors need blood to grow. They are clever enough to send out chemical signals that tell the body to build new blood vessels, leading directly to them so they can feed and expand. But the body has its own counter signals that block this process. When angiogenesis control is working well, tumors are cut off from their food supply. They cannot grow past a microscopic size. They stay harmless. So these three systems, the immune system, inflammation control, and angiogenesis control, are your body's built-in cancer defense. When all three are functioning well, those microscopic cancer cells that form every day simply never become a problem. When one or more of these systems weakens, that is when danger increases.
3 systems: the immune system, inflammation control, and blood supply control. That is a framework I have never heard explained so clearly before. So, Doctor, the question that everyone listening is already asking is, what can we actually do? What can we put in our bodies to keep these 3 systems strong?
This is where things become genuinely exciting. And I want to be precise with you, because there is a great deal of vague general nutrition advice in the world. Eat your vegetables. Avoid processed food. These things are true, but they are not enough. What I want to share today is specific foods, specific compounds inside those foods, and specific amounts that have actually been studied. Let us start with green tea. Green tea contains a compound called EGCG, epigallocatechin gallate. That is a long name, so just remember EGCG, a powerful natural compound that has been studied extensively for its effects on all 3 of the cancer defense systems we just discussed. Here is what the research shows. EGCG reduces inflammation, and we are not talking about a small effect. Studies have found reductions in inflammatory markers of 30 to 50%. That is enormous. It also activates the immune system's natural killer cells, the cells I mentioned whose job is to hunt and destroy abnormal cells. In some studies, natural killer cell activity increased by approximately 47% with regular green tea consumption, and EGCG directly blocks the angiogenesis process. It interferes with the signals that tumors use to grow new blood vessels. Long-term studies of populations that drink green tea regularly have consistently shown lower cancer rates compared to populations that do not. The dose matters. 2 to 3 cups of green tea per day is what the evidence supports. If you prefer matcha, which is powdered green tea, 1 teaspoon delivers a highly concentrated amount of EGCG. Matcha is actually more potent cup for cup than regular brewed green tea because you are consuming the entire leaf rather than just the water that has been steeped through it. I will tell you about a patient I worked with, a woman named Anna, 64 years old, who had been through treatment for early-stage breast cancer and was in remission. She came to me exhausted and frightened, and her main question was, "What can I do every day to make sure this does not come back?" We talked for a long time about the principles I am sharing today. She started with green tea in the morning, 2 cups, and matcha in the afternoon. 6 months later, her inflammatory markers had dropped significantly. She told me that knowing she was doing something every morning that was actively protecting her body changed her relationship with fear. That is not a small thing.
Anna's story is deeply moving. The idea that a morning cup of tea is actually an act of protection that changes everything about how you experience that moment. What is the next food, doctor? What else belongs in this daily cancer defense plan?
The next food is broccoli, and specifically broccoli sprouts. And I want to share something about broccoli that most people do not know because it completely changes how you should be thinking about this vegetable. Broccoli contains a compound called sulforaphane. Sulforaphane is one of the most studied natural anti-cancer compounds in the world. It activates the immune system. It turns on what we call anti-cancer genes, genes that your body already has, sitting dormant, that sulforaphane essentially switches on like a light switch. And it blocks angiogenesis, interfering with the ability of tumors to build their blood supply. This compound acts on all 3 of the defense systems simultaneously. Now, here is the part that surprises people. Most of us eat the green florets of broccoli, the tops, the pretty part. But the stalk of the broccoli, the thick white stem that most people cut off and throw away, actually contains more sulforaphane than the florets. If you have been discarding the stalk, I would encourage you to reconsider. Chop it finely, steam it lightly, and include it in your meals. Even more remarkable are broccoli sprouts, the tiny young shoots that you can find in many grocery stores or grow easily at home. Broccoli sprouts contain approximately 100 times the concentration of sulforaphane compared to mature broccoli, 100 times. A small handful of sprouts delivers the sulforaphane equivalent of a large serving of broccoli. The dose for mature broccoli is about 1 cup per day. For sprouts, half a cup delivers the equivalent benefit.
100 times stronger. That detail about the sprouts is remarkable. I will never look at broccoli the same way. Now I understand there is a fruit that specifically targets the lungs. Can you tell us about that?
Yes, papaya. And papaya is a food that I think is enormously underappreciated in the context of cancer defense, particularly for lung health. Papaya is rich in a compound called beta-cryptoxanthin. This is a natural pigment. It is what gives papaya its beautiful orange color. Beta-cryptoxanthin has a specific and well-documented relationship with lung tissue. It reduces inflammation in the lungs directly. It also blocks the growth signals that tumors use to expand, the chemical messages that cancer cells send to surrounding tissue to encourage more growth. Studies of populations who eat papaya regularly show meaningfully lower rates of lung cancer specifically. Now, I know some people worry about the sugar in fruit, particularly sweet tropical fruits like papaya. I want to address that directly. Whole fruit is not the same as added sugar or processed sugar. The fiber in whole papaya, the water content, the vitamins, the beta-cryptoxanthin, all of these things work together in a way that is completely different from drinking a sugary drink. The body processes whole fruit differently. The concern about fruit sugar causing harm is not supported by the evidence when we are talking about whole, unprocessed fruit eaten in reasonable amounts. The dose for papaya is 1 cup per day. Fresh papaya, ripe, at room temperature. This is a food that many older adults in tropical regions eat daily as a matter of tradition, and the health data from those populations is consistently striking in terms of lung disease outcomes.
That myth about fruit and sugar is one I hear constantly. It is so important to hear it addressed clearly. You mentioned cancer stem cells earlier in our conversation. I want to make sure we cover that. Is there a food specifically connected to those?
Yes, and this is one of the most fascinating areas of current research. Let us talk about purple potatoes. Purple potatoes contain compounds called anthocyanins. Anthocyanins are the pigments that create deep purple, blue, and red colors in plants. You find them in blueberries, red cabbage, and in high concentration in purple potatoes. In the context of cancer research, anthocyanins have shown a very specific and important effect. They slow tumor growth, and they target what scientists call cancer stem cells. Cancer stem cells are the root of recurrence. When someone has cancer treatment, surgery, chemotherapy, radiation, the treatment may successfully eliminate most of the cancer cells. But if a small number of cancer stem cells survive, they can eventually regenerate the cancer. This is why cancer comes back in some people years after apparently successful treatment. Anthocyanins specifically target these stem cells. This is not a general anti-cancer effect. It is targeted at the very cells most responsible for cancer returning. There is also an interesting secondary benefit with purple potatoes. When you cook a potato and then let it cool, as you might do if you cook potatoes the evening before and eat them cold the next day, the starch in the potato changes into what is called resistant starch. Resistant starch is a form of fiber that feeds the beneficial bacteria in your gut. Your gut microbiome, the community of bacteria living in your intestines, plays a direct role in how your immune system functions, including its response to cancer. Cooling your cooked purple potato is a simple step that adds this gut health benefit on top of the anthocyanin benefit. The dose is 1 medium purple potato, or approximately 1 cup several times per week. You do not need to eat them every single day to benefit from their effects.
The detail about cooling the potato to change the starch is something I had no idea about. The science here is astonishing. We have covered 4 foods. What is the 5th?
The 5th food is pomegranate, and it works through a pathway that connects directly to the gut and immune system relationship I just mentioned. Pomegranate contains compounds called L-argitannins. When you eat pomegranate or drink pomegranate juice, the L-argitannins travel to your gut, where specific beneficial bacteria convert them into another class of compounds called urolithins. Urolithins have been shown to slow cancer progression. They interfere with the growth of cancer cells directly, But there is a second effect that I find equally important. Pomegranate actively feeds a specific type of beneficial gut bacteria called Akkermansia. Akkermansia is one of the most studied gut bacteria in relation to immune function. High levels of Akkermansia in the gut are consistently associated with stronger immune responses and better outcomes in cancer patients, including patients undergoing immunotherapy treatments. The gut is not separate from the immune system, it is deeply connected to it. When you feed the right bacteria, you are feeding your immune response at the same time. This gut-cancer immune connection is one of the most exciting areas of research right now, and pomegranate sits right at the center of it. The dose is 8 ounces of pomegranate juice per day, about 1 glass. If you prefer whole pomegranate seeds, they provide the same elagitannins, though the juice is often more practical to consume consistently. The key with pomegranate, as with all of these foods, is consistency over time rather than occasional large amounts.
This connection between gut bacteria and cancer immunity is something I suspect most of our listeners have never heard before. It completely reframes what it means to eat healthy. Doctor, you have now given us 5 powerful foods. Can you bring this together into a practical daily plan, something people can actually follow?
Absolutely. And I want to emphasize something important before I do. The power of these foods is not in a single heroic dose. It is in consistent, daily use over time. The body does not transform overnight, but over weeks and months, the cumulative effect on inflammation, immune function, and cancer defense is real and measurable. Here is how a day can look. In the morning, you begin with green tea. 2 cups with your breakfast, or 1 cup and 1 teaspoon of matcha. This sets the anti-inflammatory tone for the day from the very first hour. Mid-morning, papaya. 1 cup as a snack. Simple, delicious, and delivering beta-cryptoxanthin to your lung tissue. At lunch, include broccoli or broccoli sprouts. 1 cup of broccoli as a side, or half a cup of sprouts on a salad or sandwich. If you have sprouts available, I strongly encourage making them a regular part of your lunch. In the afternoon, a 2nd cup of green tea. This maintains the EGCG in your system throughout the day and gives the immune system continued support. At dinner, include purple potatoes. If you can cook them the evening before and reheat them gently, you get the added benefit of the resistant starch. And in the evening before bed, 8 ounces of pomegranate juice. This is your nighttime support for gut bacteria and the immune-gut connection. Weeks of following this protocol will begin to lower inflammation measurably. Months of consistency will produce stronger immune activity. Frozen versions of these foods, frozen broccoli, frozen papaya, are perfectly acceptable when fresh is not available or not affordable. The active compounds survive freezing. Accessibility and affordability were central to why these 5 foods were chosen. These are not exotic, expensive ingredients available only to people with high incomes. They are foods that most families anywhere in the world can access.
That daily structure is so clear and so manageable, and the point about frozen foods matters enormously for so many people who are watching this. Before I ask you my final question, Doctor, I want to make sure our listeners understand something important. Where exactly do these foods fit in the bigger picture of cancer care?
This is a critical point, and I want to be completely clear and honest about it. These foods are not a cure. They do not replace cancer treatment. If someone has been diagnosed with cancer, the medical treatment prescribed by their oncologist, surgery, chemotherapy, radiation, immunotherapy, is their primary care. And these foods work alongside that care, not instead of it. Anyone who tells you otherwise is misleading you. And I would never want a listener to delay or avoid necessary medical treatment based on anything I say today. What the evidence does show, clearly and consistently, is that these foods are powerful support tools. They improve outcomes in cancer patients who are undergoing treatment. They reduce some of the side effects of treatment by keeping the immune system and gut microbiome healthier. They help prevent recurrence, the cancer coming back, particularly in combination with the standard follow-up care that a good oncologist provides. And for people who have not been diagnosed, they meaningfully reduce the risk of those microscopic cancer cells ever growing into something dangerous. Think of it this way. A strong house does not guarantee that no storm will ever come, but it gives you the best possible chance of weathering the storm if it does. These foods are the structural reinforcement of your body's own defenses. They work with your biology, not against it. They are among the most evidence-backed, accessible tools available to every person regardless of their medical history or current health status.
That is the clearest, most honest framing I have heard. Not a miracle, not a replacement, a powerful daily act of support. Doctor, one final question. And I want you to answer this directly to the people over 60 who are watching right now, many of whom may be frightened, some of whom may be in treatment, all of whom are wondering what they can do. What is your single most important message for them?
My message is this: you are not helpless. I want every person over 60 who is hearing this to genuinely receive that. You are not helpless. Cancer, whether you are worried about it, whether you have been diagnosed, whether you are recovering, creates a specific kind of fear that I have seen in patients throughout my entire career. It is the fear of something happening inside you that you have no influence over. And for many people, that feeling of helplessness is as damaging as the disease itself. It takes away the sense of agency. It makes people passive in their own health story. What I want you to understand, what the science now clearly shows, is that every single meal is an opportunity to act. Every cup of green tea is a choice to support your immune system. Every serving of broccoli is a decision to activate your anti-cancer genes. Every glass of pomegranate juice is a commitment to feeding the bacteria that help your immune cells function. These are not symbolic gestures. They are biologically real actions with measurable effects documented in serious scientific research. You do not need to be perfect. You do not need to eat every one of these foods every single day starting tomorrow. Start with one. Green tea in the morning. That is enough of a beginning. Consistency over time is what creates the change. Not perfection, not intensity, not dramatic overnight transformation. Over weeks, inflammation drops. Over months, immune function strengthens. The body is remarkable in its capacity to respond. At 60, 70, 80 years old, that capacity is still there. It is waiting for you to give it the right conditions. You have more power here than you have been told.
Dr. Becker, that message, you are not helpless, is something every person watching this needed to hear today. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for the clarity, the science, and the genuine care you brought to this conversation. I want to ask everyone watching right now, which of these 5 foods are you going to add to your routine first? Tell us in the comments below. Is it green tea in the morning, broccoli sprouts at lunch, pomegranate juice in the evening? Share your answer. Your choice might inspire someone else to take their first step. If this episode helped you, please like this video, subscribe to Older Podcast, and share it with someone over 60 who needs to hear this.